And here is Miss Jeneba Wint. Jeneba is a creative technologist with over 6 years of experience leading SaaS digital product development projects and over 10 years in the tech industry. She enjoys speaking on digital transformation, the future of work and career development, and career branding for Black technologists. As a data-driven product strategist and user experience storyteller, she is focused on digital transformation and digital project management within startups and mid-sized enterprise corporations. Her secret sauce is in product development and digital program operations. She's a builder. She excels and very much enjoys standing up new programs, processes, and technology, driving adoption and advocating for her team and the work that we do. She thrives bringing order to chaos. So thank you so much, Jeneba, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Slide. And Jeneba, do you have some, would you like to share your screen? Do you have some slides for us today?
Yes,
Okay.
I can pull up my screen to share that now.
Thank you so much.
Okay, let's get to. Can you all see my screen here?
We currently see your screen, but it's your Zoom browser that's open in that presentation. Is there another tab you need to click on to access your presentation? It looks like one tab over.
There you go.
And then it just looks
Can't
like
click it. The pesky Zoom little thing is blocking it at the top. So let me try to see how I can pull this screen down.
Sometimes if you hold your cursor, your mouse cursor on it, you can kind of move it out of the way. Okay, great.
Can you guys see this Canvas screen?
Yep, and just click present. We'll be all set, Jeneba. Wonderful.
Got it.
You got it. And I'll let you take the floor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the introduction. So today, we're talking about navigating racial disparities in the workplace. And throughout my years being in corporate or working professionally, this is something that's come up several times, and just wanted to share some of those experiences with you all. So what if I told you at age 21, I was interning for then Senator Joe Biden and was hair shamed and told by my manager, once I got the position as an intern and came in, I shouldn't wear my natural hair into the office. And once I started, maybe I should try to wear my hair a little bit differently. That's more professional. Or in my 20s, I experienced several times where I would be passed over for roles, or I would be looked over on my resume, or just asked various inappropriate questions throughout the interview process or the hiring process about my name, about it being ethnic, about what it means, or called out in different ways regarding my name, which my maiden name is Jeneba Massaquoi, which is an African name. So it's often mispronounced or kind of made fun of or made strange comments about during that time. I experienced I had several experiences like that. And then most recently in my current company or role, when asked about opportunity for advancement or a new position coming up, I was told by the then senior manager or executive that I wasn't maybe the right culture fit or didn't have the right executive presence that they were looking for the role. And all of these experiences, I want to let you all know that not only is racial discrimination or racial bias in the workplace unethical, it is most certainly illegal. There have been several legal protections put out there by Congress to protect things such as this. The 1964 Civil Rights Act prohibits racial discrimination at work. And most recently, the Crown Act was passed, I believe it was last year, to protect hair, to protect natural hair and various ways that people of color wear their hair in the workplace. So that could be anything from an afro to cornrows to dreadlocks and any other big curly hair, natural hair styles. So legal protections have been put in place to protect us. Other ways some racial disparities may show up in hiring practices or at work could be in whitening of resumes. Studies show that 25% of Black candidates have whitened their resume. Similar to Asian Americans have also done the same thing, and it's resulted in callbacks versus people who did not, 11.5% increase in callbacks. Other practices are things like resume screenings for maybe people who went to historically Black colleges and universities, or other biases or prejudices that may exist, ethnic names and stereotypes around an individual. Also, Black sounding names, quote unquote, have gotten, or ethnic sounding names have gotten, have received fewer callbacks during a hiring process or interview process than their white counterparts at over 50. They've received fewer than 50% callbacks. On average, ethnic minorities typically have to complete over 50% more job applications that get invited to a then interview process and result in an offer than their white counterparts. But I want to highlight, unfortunately, racial inequality or discrimination in the workplace or racial bias don't just stop during the hiring process. They often exist in the workplace after our more diverse candidates are hired. And this can show up in things like being asked to do less desirable or less high profile tasks, less visible projects, often known sometimes maybe as grunt work, lack of access to training or a mentorship that's needed to further their career or in career advancement, fewer promotions or lower performance evaluations, and then less access to high visibility or high impact roles or opportunities within the organization. So how can you identify these type of working environments or a company that might not have implemented any sort of diversity and inclusion strategies or strategies to prevent or reduce racial discrimination or bias? I've put together 6 signs that you should look out for in identifying racial disparity in corporate environments. So this could show up, and you can use some of these 6 strategies, and they include lack of diversity on a hiring committee or a recruiting team. So that would be when you're kind of looking at online, when you're looking at the company that you're wanting to interview for or apply to a job with. You could look at the structure of their HR team. You could look up on LinkedIn who's on their HR team, or who is on their board, or who's on their executive leadership. A sign that possibly they might not be as forward thinking or have strategies in place would be that they don't have diversity on their hiring committee or executive leadership team. They don't promote pay equity or transparency within their hiring practices, or if you're already in the company, within their promotion practices. There's a lack of how much people are being paid as a company, people in the same roles from different backgrounds or diverse backgrounds, how much are they being paid versus white counterparts or Asian counterparts or whoever. They don't celebrate cultural holidays. They don't celebrate all cultural holidays or observe them. They don't have employee resource groups. So employee resource groups are typically a great strategy for combating racial disparities and promoting equitable and diverse teams and companies. They are usually, they have African American resource groups. They will have Latin resource groups. They would have LGBT resource groups. So there's several resource groups that a company can offer. These are usually best led when they're led by executives, because it allows executives to get involved with these different groups and promote these practices as well. These companies may not have or promote skill-based trainings and opportunities to kind of offer reskilling and upskilling opportunities for all employees. Maybe they have lack of transparency, pathways, and promotion for advancement. And they don't have an actionable diversity training or education program within their company. So they're not actively or intentionally promoting diverse and inclusive strategies, programs within their company. What I've found is you've got to become your own biggest advocate and normalize self-advocacy. Self-advocacy is an approach in which you speak up for yourself and you communicate your own worth. You take action in speaking up for yourself and communicating your needs within, of course, your company or business or the work that you do. Some of the synonyms that come to mind when I think about self-advocacy is self-help, self-improvement, self-promotion, self-advertising, self-representation, self-advancement, self-support, and kind of I sum all that up by someone owning or taking initiative in the development or progression of their own career or themselves. So their skills, their development, their education, their resources, and then just advocating for all of those things. I've put together this basic self-advocacy checklist on how to put self-advocacy into practice in your real life. So the first thing you can do is know your expertise, know what it is that you're great at, what it is that you're best at. Celebrating your accomplishments publicly. I think this particular one is often hard, I feel, for people to do. It kind of feels braggy. It kind of feels maybe icky to put yourself out there and say, celebrate your own wins and promote the things that you do. But in self-advocacy, if you don't do that, then kind of no one knows about it. Your manager may not know, the people you work with may not know, the executive team or leadership at your company may not know the things that you do and the things that you do well if you're not constantly promoting it and taking initiative to celebrate your own wins. Know thyself. Understand what you value, what your needs are, what your non-negotiables are. Some examples of that would be when you're in a role, you may need certain kinds of support. You may need your manager to be supportive in X, Y, and Z area. Maybe it is a training or a conference that you may be interested in going to. So knowing how to advocate for that and ask for that, knowing what your core values are as a person, what means the most to you as an employee, as a person. And then knowing your non-negotiables. Non-negotiables when we're talking about things like careers would be, I don't work past X o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, or, I need space to create, or, I like to work in environments where my ideas are heard. Non-negotiables could be things on pay. You desire a certain salary, so anything underneath that could be a non-negotiable for you. Teaching people how to treat you and setting boundaries and expectations for your career and your role. That could be when you are given more work or additional work to do on a project. So kind of setting those boundaries to say, you're at your bandwidth, or that's not in your skill set. So that might not be something that you want to contribute to or bring to that project. And then setting expectations with your manager and your coworkers of how you like to work and how you like to be treated and what things you like to work on and what's, in your skill set. Sharing your ideas strategically and shamelessly. Again, I think this one is often hard for people to do. Presenting their ideas sometimes they might not feel confident sharing their ideas or promoting their ideas. Or they just might not want to put their ideas out there. So sometimes they don't, or sometimes they let someone else take credit for their ideas, or they want to put it out there as someone else's ideas. But in self-advocacy, you definitely have to be able to share those ideas and present those ideas strategically. Teaching people how to support you to perform your job to the best of your abilities, where you need support and help, and then asking for that. And then self-reflection. So this could be, does your current job, company, does that role support you and your future goals and your future needs? Does the manager you have support you? Does the current job align with your short-term and long-term goals? So when I'm saying, does it serve you or benefit you? It's kind of like taking ownership in your career and your career path to not what you can give to the company, but also what the company and the role gives to you and your goals and your dreams. So what do we know about people who practice self-advocacy or people who self-advocate? Often they fast track their own career advancement because self-advocacy helps you to not only talk about the hard work you do and your accomplishments, but it helps you to take ownership in your career progression and your career advancement. So ultimately you get to where you want to go faster and more efficiently. They're happier with their careers and they're more intentional about their wellness because they speak up about their needs and what they want and what they value, and they've taken note of what they value and what that means to them. So their long-term happiness and success, they've taken an active role in what that looks like and developing what that looks like for themselves. They know their worth, so they're comfortable demanding or putting out there what they want, and they're not afraid to walk away from situations or things that devalue them or don't align with their values. They're comfortable being uncomfortable. So this also kind of ties into the career advancement piece because they raise their hand, they opt into special projects or new opportunities that allow them to gain new skills. And they're intentional about that. They're intentional about kind of speaking up or advocating for new opportunities for growth and advancement. And they tend to stretch themselves and not shrink themselves, which is a big part of self-advocacy and career advancement. So lastly, they're deliberate about their communication. They control their own narrative in challenging things that don't align with their values or cross their boundaries or disrupt their boundaries and expectations. They ask clarifying questions and they validate their emotions and their perspectives. So if their perspective or something they're feeling doesn't sit right with them in a corporate experience, maybe the way someone spoke over them in a meeting, or maybe how a teammate was treated, they are deliberate and direct about communicating those emotions or feelings around that and their own perspectives around situations in their work or corporate environment. And so I know, oh, my screen is a little bit cut off here. 1 second. I've put together a few self-advocacy scripts for you all, just kind of in practice so that you can see some situations where we might want to use self-advocacy skills and language. So, so here are some of the top things that I feel like I've experienced and I know others have experienced in the workplace where it calls for opportunity to self-advocate. And so I'll just go through these. The first one is when someone is speaking over you in a meeting, or you didn't get to complete your thought, you go to a meeting or you go to environments where other people might be more boisterous or talk a little bit louder, and sometimes the loudest in the room is usually heard. So something that you can use to speak up for yourself or advocate for yourself is, I was still speaking and I like to complete this thought. I'm going to finish now. Would you allow me to finish? And you would continue talking and speaking and finish your thought or point. When you disagree with someone, a teammate, a manager, someone who maybe has a higher position than you or role than you, and you'd like further clarity or explanation, you could say, can you help me understand how this is going to work? Or can you walk me through your thought process for this idea, plan, or strategy? I like that one a lot because it doesn't come off negative, or it doesn't come off as this doesn't make sense or I don't agree with it, but it's a nice way to challenge it and still get your point across, but also advocate for your own idea or thought process. Asking for a promotion. You could say something like, I've been with X company for X amount of years. This is how I've been consistently adding value throughout my time here. And then that's when you give examples of things that you've done that go above and beyond sort of what your role or job description is, or how you've crushed your goals or worked through your goals on a particular project or for your role. And then you'd say, I'd like to discuss the best path forward for me and advancing my career. And then you give further examples or go into more detail of things that you've done with your manager. Saying no to more work or projects when you have too much work on your plate or responsibilities on your plate. You could say something like, right now, I don't have the bandwidth to join you on this project or complete those additional tasks, but if you could let me know how else I could support you at this time, I can do that. And I'd be around for any further questions. So those are just a few of the things that I like to do or say in some situations where I need to advocate for myself, or some of these I've even given to direct reports or people on my team that have helped them in similar situations or scenarios. Okay, so that is all I have when it comes to slides, and I am definitely here for questions, or if we'd like to open up for more conversation around these topics.
Thank you so much, Jeneba. Thank you for sharing your story, some history around these issues, some wonderful, wonderful strategies and tips around self-advocacy for everyone. So really great information, and definitely we want to invite our participants now at this time to either feel free to unmute yourself or drop a question or comment in the chat. We have about 10 minutes of our time left. So go ahead and be welcome to do that now.
Hi, Jeneba, this is Krista Harmon. So I'm wondering, hi, I'm just wondering about some of your responses from your white coworkers, because it wasn't until I read a book called Waking Up White that I started to really realize how I was wired. And so when you put a healthy boundary, for example, on, you know, I don't have the bandwidth to help with that, and you put that boundary, which I love, but like I was raised, you just kind of go, you keep going to go above and beyond, above and beyond. So I'm wondering how that's been received for you when you may be in more of a white culture, that's different way that people might perceive that and see it as, oh, she's not going above and beyond. And so then it ends up being a negative on you. So I'm just wondering what your experiences have been like.
Yeah, I was also raised in the above and beyond, I guess, culture. I don't know. And so I think it happens also not only to, people of color, as it also happens especially to women, when you're kind of being, I don't know, it's kind of like a ball and chain to advancement when you're in these situations. So for me, when I've set a healthy boundary to say kind of what I want to go above and beyond on, it's worked for me, not in the beginning, but as I've practiced it more and more, it's worked for me when I've documented not only everything that I am doing that is just baseline, but I keep a record of what I'm doing that's above and beyond. And then I measure my success on that. So are the things that I'm doing above and beyond actually getting me anywhere? Or is that going into my performance evaluation? Or is that somehow contributing to the bottom line of this company or the goals or my own personal goals or the company's goals? I feel like oftentimes we may be going above and beyond, and then it's like creating busy work for our own selves. And it's not really things that can get us to that next level or can get us to the promotion. I think I tend to focus on what are those things. What are the things that are helping me to advance? What are the things that are really adding value? And then I choose what I'm going to go above and beyond based on that, because I think sometimes above and beyond could definitely mean different things to different people. So I think maybe having a clarifying conversation as well with the manager. I've done that where I've sent back, here are the list of things that you said are priority for me, for you, for our team. Could you help me to prioritize these things? Like, I've immediately sent that back because I have a running list, right? I have a running list of what I'm supposed to be doing and then what's above and beyond, and then what I'm not supposed to be doing. So I often will put it back on the manager and say, I'm happy to help. Can we talk about what's the priority for you in these lists of things so that you can help me understand what I should be working on first and what's more important?
Thank you. I see that Jim has his hand raised, so go ahead and unmute yourself, Jim.
Yeah, Jeneba, thank you so much. This is great. One of the struggles, and you kind of alluded to it, is the bragging versus just telling what the facts are, right? I mean, it's like, what's my accomplishment versus bragging about it, and that's a hard one for me, for a lot of clients, I would say, that I work with. How do you approach that with some of your clients?
I approach it, I kind of keep a wins, I call it like a kudos folder in my email, where I've put a folder in there that I collect what other people say, right? So if someone says, great job on this, you killing it, you crushed it in these XYZ things, here's what you did, here's how it adds value, I just immediately drag it out. I put it into that kudos folder. And so when I go to my kudos folder, I can see what it is that's the real accomplishments or wins versus like maybe what I thought in my head. Or I think it helps me to measure the real impact of what it is, what of the accomplishment or the win. Also kind of helps develop the language on how to talk about it, right? So it's not in a braggy way, because it's kind of like testimonials on your own self. it's what other people have said. And it kind of helps you to put together the language of what it is that you've done without feeling weird about it, or without, you know, that icky, I'm bragging, or that weirdness.
Thank you. That's a great idea.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I was typing something in the chat there. I was just mentioning that sometimes LinkedIn can be a space where we can toot our own horn a little bit on a special project or activity event that we have, that we're in, that we've completed, etc. I also wanted to bring to light, Tia Marie Sanders said, you know, diversity training is something that should take place for all in a school setting, right? K-12 as well as post-secondary. And Tia Marie, it often does take place. However, in my experience, like I said, in my very own experience, it's been kind of a one and done. And then the years following, year 2 and 3, where we should see some practices and implementation and growth in that area, they kind of fall through the cracks, right? And so how can we look at that differently and make sure changes happening in those environments, as well as, you know, new staff that come aboard throughout the year or following years that then may not have received that training as well. I'll give a little plug, if it's okay, to MCAN. They do a whole course around diversity and counseling in the career environment. So check that out if that's something you benefit from. Anyone else with some additional comments or questions? Tia Marie, go ahead and unmute yourself, please.
Thank you. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I'm not ready for you to see me, but
Yes.
it's not presentable at the moment. And thank you very much, Jen. One of the things that, so thank you to the speaker for just naming so many things. I think part of being in this space is somewhat, I don't know if the word would be called a loneliness of understanding, because you know what's happening in those spaces, but people around you seem to not know. And there is a huge gap between the culture of what you understand the work to be and what their expectation is. I put a link in there about just understanding a culture of like perfectionism. I think those are all some of the things driving it. And it works, like she said, for women as well. My question is, when there is, and I kind of know the answer, but I'm just being devil's advocate here. In those environments, if you're advocating for change in a sea of resistance, what other advice would you have or would you share if anyone else in the group would like to share? Often we are the only in our spaces, so that voice can be drowned out very quickly. And then the other would be, you know, culture shifts in terms of advocating for more training for that, some verbiage around that.
Wow, yes. I think all good points, especially the point about what you know the work to be versus what the expectations or what the expectations of the work not being that and calling for something else. I think when you're the only one, it's, from my own experience, it's harder to focus on the diversity and inclusivity work versus just doing my job or whatever it is, the job that I'm at that company to do. I think I've more so leaned on when I was the only one. It's very easy to just, I guess, use my skill set or use my expertise or whatever it is that I was hired to do as a form of advocacy versus kind of drilling in the diversity and inclusivity work or strategies, or I guess being the lone advocate or cheerleader for that. And when I mean when I say using that as an advocacy strategy is that I'm the only one that looks like me, maybe, or I'm the only one of this certain group. But I'm here for a reason. I obviously deserve to be here, and I'm an expert in X. And I kind of think that for me, it has helped me to kind of knock down barriers or find alignment points with people that may not have ever worked with a Black woman of color in this X particular space or whatever. So I think that's, I don't know, that's what I've done that's worked for me when I've been the only person, which has happened a lot, working in technology, often being the only woman and also the only minority in the room.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Jeneba. We are at our time, and it's our goal to always be respectful of everyone's time, joining us perhaps on a lunch hour. So thank you once again to all of those who have joined us today. Thank you so much, Jeneba, for such a wonderful presentation and discussion, and really great tips that we can put into practice immediately as well. Really.
Thank you. Thank you for having
it.
me. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Have a great day yourselves.
I have a quick question. Jennifer, are you able to share, because I don't know some of my other colleagues that are on the call, are you able to share, if anybody is comfortable, a contact list so that we can reach out to each other to be supportive to each other and just continue to build from here? Whoever's comfortable sharing it in like an email.